We have to clarify. Yeah, we can check it. I'm not very familiar with it.
Welcome. You've got mail.
We're in slide 112. Basically, it's just showing that we use the square root sum of squares method to combine all these results from different loads. So basically, the loads applied in one direction are summed and squared, and sum and square root was taken for all three directions, first torsion. And 113 gives a summary of the whole presentation. That methodology used to develop the specific seismic loads is identical to that of DCD. The distribution of the loads applied on Larson model is consistent with that obtained from the Laplace model. We did a check of it by applying loads on the model and calculating reaction at each elevation to demonstrate or to show that results of the application of the load first is accurate. The second thing that the distribution of the global load demand is consistent with that of the Laplace model. I think this is the last slide of.
To go back to slide 91, since you're going to plot the shear distribution on the RCCV cylinder at one elevation, can you also show what is half of that or the total that, not the 360 degree.
No, the same shear area that was considered when developing the Laplace.
Okay, good. That answers my question. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Plus, we have one active.
One or two.
For the audit.
Yeah, we will provide the information what we need. Right.
We also need.
And that was on the other slide, right?
Can you hear me? Okay, so at NRC action item 0209-16001, ask questions about the loads for the... slide 114. Ask about the loads for the underground tunnel in the ITAC. So specifically, the ITAC refers to the load combinations identified in section 37313, and the response to this is that the NA3 departure relates only to the seismic loads, and there are no departures from the DCD related to other site-specific design features and loads for the tunnels. The NRC approved the structural design basis for the tunnels as described in DCD section 37313 and concluded that the DCD conformed to SRP 3 guidance. And in a response to North Anna 3 REI 373-1, the COLA markups and a site-specific ITAC address the development of spurs for the seismic departure for the seismic category 1 buried piping, conduits, and tunnels. And then we give the reference for that. And the ITAC for the access tunnel and the Radways tunnel address the seismic departure and ensure conformance with DCD 37313. So we had additional changes for COLA Part 10 that were brought up in one of the last phone calls that we had. So we agreed that we would change footnote 4 in the table for Tier 1. It's from the DCD Table 5.1-1. And so we'll have that in the CCR package markup. And then we're also going to correct the title for the Radways Tunnel table. It now is entitled.
I have one question on this 373-1 markup that we had, or 373 markup. We said that we'll develop the FIRS using section 2.5, but the FIRS are really developed in 371. So could you take a look whether you need to reference 3.71 there? I don't, as I recall, I couldn't find 371 reference there, but it could have there.
We'll look at it. I have.
That. See whether we
Goodbye.
need any clarification there. If not, fine.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to do the next question too, or did you want to do that? 116, NRC action item 0209-16002.
Mute off.
Fuel pool
Mute on.
refers to a discussion in the DCD that indicates that the fuel pool liner and anchorage are designed basically, as seismic category 1. And the question was there a site-specific analysis for this?
Where in the FSR it was assessed for site-specific situation?
So if you go back to what we committed to do in the seismic closure plan, we said that for the things that we evaluated for the DCD that we would evaluate for the North Anna site. Okay, so we did commit that these would be seismic category 1, but we actually don't have a seismic category 1 calculation, fuel pool liners and anchorage. Instead, we have ITAC, and the ITAC are listed on slide 117.
So that's the DCD ITAC?
That's the DCD ITAC that cover this. And because we changed the definition of SSE for all of the ITAC that will be applicable to North Anna 3, that will pick up the North Anna 3 seismic.
It's okay to me.
Okay, what's next? Okay, I think David's up next.
So continuing on slide 118, the question was asked about the response spectra and transient dynamic analysis using synthetic time histories that were utilized for the fuel storage racks. And concerning these analyses, provide a presentation discussing the two methods and the results, and then the final question was asked, are these site-specific methods the same as the DCD approach? So on slide 119, so first, all analysis methods for the fuel storage racks were identical to those used in the DCD. The DCD analyses are contained in a NITO document, NITO 33373, revision 5, which was incorporated in the DCD by reference. So the similarities between the analysis include assumptions, finite models, load combinations, stress analysis methods, all stress evaluation methods. We used identical, we've got, so we'll keep going here, but the DCD reports are contained in section 1, 2, and 3 of the NITO report. Equivalent valuations are contained in GE documents, and those are listed on the third bullet on slide 119. And then the final bullet point, we actually provided the NRC with summary documents that just provided bounding loads and the major results, and have ultimately only provided a brief explanation of the whole method.
By the way, on that report, the 2N8467, this is a summary that you have provided, which is based on one of those or three of those reports, right? Up above. Now, you didn't reference those reports in the summary report. Or at least I didn't see it. You might have. I don't know. The thing is, the proper referencing should be there, wherever you got that. So, in that report, you have reference to those calculations? Yes. Okay, then it's fine. Okay.
Okay, so you can hear me here. So continuing on, so that's, we do use all the same methods as the DCD. So this is a brief overview of the actual calculation itself. I'm right now speaking specifically for the fuel racks in the spent fuel pool. Those are freestanding racks. I'll cover briefly the difference between that analysis and those analyses performed for the anchored racks that exist in the buffer pool. So these are freestanding racks in the spent fuel pool, linked at the upper and lower corners through cross beams as well as through the bearing pads. They are analyzed using both a response spectra analysis, which conservatively evaluates stresses due to inertial loading on a detailed finite element model. There's also a nonlinear transient analysis that determines the effect of impact between racks, as well as peak displacements and impact loads on the floor. So maximum impact forces between to go back to the transient analysis, that's actually evaluated across 6 scenario cases. So it's 6, we have a single time history input that's used, but then we alter the friction between different pads and floors, and those are actually listed. The 6 different scenario cases are listed later. What actually, 120? And then just continuing on how the calculations perform, maximum impact forces between the racks are applied in 4 impact load cases, where the peak loads between racks are then applied conservatively. All right. So they're applied in 4 impact load cases on the detailed finite element model to determine the bounding stresses resulting from the impacts. And then impact loads as well as the response spectrum analysis loads are then combined as relevant, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So the response spectrum evaluation, this is a detailed model of the rack itself. We fix the feet, perform a eigenvalue analysis. We extract the first 100 modes. These are combined using the grouping method in Reg Guide 192 Rev 1. Performed in each direction. Directional responses are combined by SRSS. These are combined with the SSD, LOCA, and SRV responses. Missing mass is accounted for using Appendix A methods of Reg Guide 192 Rev 2. On slide 122, we take stresses at components from the response spectrum analysis. We use maximum displacements and combine that with the maximum displacements from the transient analysis. Yep. Oh, 121. Can we go back to 121? Oh, I'm sorry. I believe it's over 100 hertz. The 4-rated plates are included to eliminate, so these are massless 4-rated plate elements are included to eliminate the shell bending modes on the enveloping plate. We eliminate. I can get you a specific answer, but I believe it's... Back to 122. So and we've got the results of the response spectrum analysis. We can go on to 123 to the transient analysis. So the actual transient analysis consists of 20 simplified beam models of the racks themselves. The simplified model is shown in the upper right, which is basically a one beam element that represents the enveloping plate, and then a beam element representing the fuel. These are connected with gap or link elements. And then we have 4 rigid links at both the top and bottom to replicate the geometry of the outer corners of the where the links actually occur to the other racks. There's contact elements on the floor, and we can both have overturning and well as generate impact loads. And then we've got hydrodynamic coupling between both the fuel and the fuel storage rack, the fuel storage rack and the nearby fuel storage racks, as well as the rack and the fuel wall. Yeah, no, so those are the big characteristics of those models. We want to go on to the next slide. We'll talk about how the analysis is performed. I'm sorry, yes, 124. So we did, so we have our 20 rack model. We have synthesized acceleration time histories generated from the 4% damp design ISRS, and these are 16-second total duration and 5 millisecond times. These Raleigh proportional damping. Here's a list that we have, and then we run this analysis for 6 scenario cases. Those are listed C1 through C6. We're changing the coefficients of friction of specific racks, as well as whether racks are full of fuel or are empty. We run these 6 cases. From those, maximum displacements are taken. Those are used to ensure there's no impact with the pool wall. We also get out maximum loadings, including the maximum link impact loads, the maximum impact load between the fuel and the fuel storage rack, and then the shears between the fuel storage rack and pool, the compression and shear loads between the rack and the pool liner, as well as the peak global moment.
How many time sets of time history you use for the nonlinear analysis?
So we only use one across 6 scenarios. But we're also taking only the peak load, so we're not actually taking any stress results from the nonlinear analysis. We're instead taking the peak loads across. We have a matrix fuel element. We're taking peak loads, a single set of fuel elements, and then we're applying that. And if we can go to maybe 125, you'll see we then apply that load in 4 directions. We take that peak load, for instance, we're looking at the top in the upper left-hand corner. We apply that peak load as a compression load on all 4 corners from all adjacent racks.
I needed that because I didn't review it myself. So because the SRP guidance says need more than 1, so 4, 7, something. I'm trying to make a connection between the guidance and this. So I'm thinking about I don't know.
Well, although SRP says, but I think DCD probably used the same, only one set.
Yes.
This is Joe Braverman. Can I ask you on slide 124, maybe you touched upon it and I missed it, the second major bullet on the method, you indicate reduced gravity applied to account for gravity. I didn't understand that.
I believe it's to account for the fact that you're underwater. Sorry, that's probably my typo that buoyancy effect.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's fine.
L is proportional damping, right? So did you check the damping value in each mode? What did it come out?
I didn't. I can point you to, I know we answered REIs on this question as part of the DCE process. I think I could give you, I've got it in my bag.
Okay, fine. And during audit, we can look at it.
Yeah, we can look further at that, but...
That's fine.
Are you looking for specific alpha beta values? Oh, yeah, it stays below 4% across 2 hertz, I believe. We can probably go on to 125. So we take our maximum loads across our 6 scenario cases and apply them in 4 different load impact cases. These generate the local impact loads on the components. Going on to slide 126. Here we can see the results of the specific impact load cases on the different structures. And I've plotted out, so these are showing just the limiting load cases are listed for each different structure.
Time history analysis is used only for finding the impact load.
Yeah.
And rest of the design is based on response spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, didn't you also calculate some sort of ratio factor between the time history and the results from the detailed response spectra and apply that factor?
Yeah, so on the next slide, 127, we talk about that.
Okay. So it's not just to get the impact forces, which are additional forces to design for, but also if the factor is greater than 1, then you consider that?
We scale down the stresses on the resulting from the response spectrum analysis based on the maximum moment taken from the response spectrum analysis to the maximum moment based on the transient analysis. For this analysis, we got a factor of 0.91s, but so this is accounting for the over-conservatism, the fact that we fixed our feet in the response spectrum analysis.
So you use time history in the design then?
We used it as I guess we used it as part of our scaling of the results.
Okay.
I guess the challenge is that for this version of the evaluation, our stresses are so much lower that we could have eliminated that scaling factor and still been well below our acceptable value. So.
If the scaling factor is less than 1, you basically just apply 1. You don't credit the transient analysis for the scaling. The response.
In the DCD analysis,
credit will go up.
In the DCD analysis, I think the factor was 0.925.
You sure about that?
Yeah. Used to scale it.
I think because I use the result from the nonlinear dynamic analysis to come up with the scaling factor, then the appropriateness of the nonlinear analysis becomes kind of relevant here, right? The only one-time history for the suppose you should use a 4 or 7, then you get maybe, I don't know. But you could have used the other way to justify, like you said, the stress level is so low. Mm-hmm. What is the stress level compared to the capacity?
Well, so maybe. Well, we use the exact same methods as are in the DCD. So let me just reiterate that all of these are exactly what was performed before. So I understand the question, though. I think it may help to jump forward a little bit to slides. Maybe if we can just hold the question and go on to it's the next set of questions on page 129. Yeah, so we actually got I think this was initially a 6-part question. But I think my section is C, is where my analysis comes in. So we're going to start with C. So this is confirmed that the synthesized time history is used for the transient analysis envelope. The response spectrum are statistically independent as recommended in SRPs 371. So I can, that's going to slide 130 to restate the question, and 131. So for the time history evaluation, here's our enveloping response spectra. The questions this is for the spent fuel pool. 132. For the these are for the fuel racks in the buffer pool and the buffer pool deep pit. And then going to 133, I think this will be the slide of interest, is the correlation coefficients resulting from our time history. So you'll notice in the spent fuel pool that we have a 0.18, a 0.17, and a 0.24, which are over the 0.16 recommended by the SRP. So so in justifying that, I think we're looking at basically the analysis as a whole. So we do identify on slide, and we can go on to 134. So we identify that there is that we do use a scaling factor, this F sub m value, for scaling our response vector analysis stresses. So there is a concern about the effect of the time histories. We are applying the impact loads as the peak loads at really 8 locations because it 2 corners each side. So we're taking the peak load between any given 2 racks and applying it 8 times and then generating the impact stresses from that. And then